Right, one of our big questions this morning, should pregnant women be spared prison simply because they're pregnant to avoid babies being born behind bars? Today, the government will be asked in the House of Lords how many mothers with babies are currently in prison and if alternative sentencing, not involving being put behind bars, should be considered. Well, ITV News were recently given unprecedented access to a mother and baby unit in a UK prison. They spoke to one woman who said her place in the unit has been a lifeline. OK, well, here to argue this through for us is the co-director of the feminist campaign group, Level Up, Janey Starling. She says that pregnant women simply should never be incarcerated. And criminal lawyer Rojin Tasman, who says that if a pregnant woman commits a crime that's worthy of jail, then they should do the time. Well, let's come to you first, Janey. I mean, you can't mean never. I mean, what if, as I was saying, Rose West or Myra Hindley had been 6 months pregnant when they were sentenced? Surely they should have gone to jail.
So I just want to set the context for where this question has come from in the House of Lords. So in the last 5 years, 2 babies have died inside women's prisons where women were left to go into labour inside their cell without any medical assistance. The first of those baby deaths was the death of baby Aisha Cleary at Bronzefield Prison in Surrey. And what happened was her mother went into labour in her cell, locked in her cell. I think a lot of people watching this might not quite realise that pregnant women are locked in their cells overnight. They can't kind of come and go. There's no special allowances there. So she was locked in her cell overnight. She went into labour. She called for help multiple times. Her calls were ignored. She gave birth to her baby alone, with no choice but to bite through the umbilical cord. Her baby died. Dreadful treatment now, and an appalling case, not the norm for women having babies in prison, I would hope. So if, in that circumstance, obviously shocking, absolutely unacceptable treatment. But that doesn't answer Richard's question, which is, what if a mass murderer was convicted and got pregnant? Would you argue that they should be spared jail? So, Hajji, let me continue. What I was going to say is, as a result of that baby death, the prison ombudsman then ruled every pregnancy in prison as high risk. And it wasn't until last year when the Sentencing Council... Let's talk about the principle here now, all right? Of course, women lose their babies in tragic and unforgivable circumstances outside jail as well and in hospitals. All right, let's set that to one side. You've made that point. Please answer the general point behind the question, because, you know, people watching want to know what you think. Should a serial killer, and there are women serial killers, who is pregnant, be spared jail simply because she's expecting a baby? I don't think any judge in England would not send someone who has committed a crime like that to prison. But that is an extremely atypical case. We know the vast majority of women in prison are there for short sentences. 50% of women in prison are there for less than 6 months. The most common offence is shoplifting. What we need to talk about when we talk about prisons is the social factors that are driving women there in the first place, and also when we're talking about sentencing, bearing in mind this ruling from the prison ombudsman that all pregnancies in prison are high risk, it does unfortunately mean that a sentencing judge has to consider the risk that prison poses to the mother and to the baby, because when you're sentencing a pregnant woman to prison, you're not just sentencing her, it is a double punishment. So are you suggesting on the child as well? If the woman is facing a short sentence, and I wonder where you would draw that line, that they should not be sent to prison if they're pregnant? The government has admitted this. We've just seen the sentencing review, the independent sentencing review led by former Justice Secretary David Gauke, has recommended that pregnant women should be kept out of prison at all costs, and that's through community orders, suspended sentences and deferred sentences.
Rojin,
so that's the government's position.
Would you draw a line? Would you draw a line, or would you say it's an absolute that a woman who isn't pregnant, who's committed an offence which, say, gets 6 months, goes to jail, and the next woman in front of the judge who's committed exactly the same offence but is pregnant should not go to jail?
They should both serve the time equally. And the reason why I put it, I take your point that out-of-court disposals, community orders, suspended sentences are always considered in any event. A prison sentence is last resort, which basically shows that this female, this individual, is dangerous, as you stated yourself, Rose West. Will members of the public be comfortable with Rose West being released if she was pregnant.
I think the difficulty
in the community.
in calling on Rose West is that it pulls on a very atypical case. I mean, you can only name one.
You've made references to two cases as well.
But the vast majority of women in prison...
If we eliminate punishment, then what's the point of the sentencing guidelines in any event, pregnant or not?
The new guidance came into force on the 1st of April, said that courts should avoid the possibility of an offender navigating the risks associated with pregnancy, birth and the postnatal period in custody unless the imposition of a custodial sentence is unavoidable. In your experience, Rojin, because this is obviously very recent, it's only the last couple of months.
That guideline isn't enforced yet. I'm sorry, just to correct you, that guideline is not enforced. That comes into force on the 1st of September. It has been delayed.
OK.
OK. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's not the guidance that we've been given, but your information is that gets delayed until...
The 1st of September.
1st of September. Do you anticipate that women will deliberately get pregnant in order to avoid jail?
Yes, of course. I mean, statistically, females are less likely to be arrested, charged, convicted in any event. Now it's almost a somewhat cheat code. How to avoid jail, get pregnant. You know, it's so dangerous. It's not a safe precedent to set because there is healthcare in prison. There is healthcare. There is healthcare in prison. Let's not forget that.
There is special mother and baby units.
Yeah, there's mother and baby units.
Yeah.
If they need external experts to intervene, then they do.
Do you have any evidence, Rojin, that women who have committed a crime, they know they've committed the crime, they suspect they're going to get convicted and it's a serious enough crime that they're going to go to jail?
That's it.
Do you have any evidence that they are then deliberately getting pregnant in the interval between being charged and appearing in court?
We've already have an issue on trafficking, OK? And I already said statistically it's less likely that females are arrested, please let me finish, are arrested, charged or convicted, OK? So if this female has been convicted of an offence which only attracted an imprisonment sentence, like I said, any competent lawyer acting in the best interest of their clients will attempt to secure an out-of-court disposal, community services with probation officers, and if the sentencing is less than 2 years imprisonment, get that suspended. But if it attracts an imprisonment sentence, then that's not someone we want in our community. That is not someone we want in our community.
Is the answer to just ensure that pregnant women are treated properly in prison? No one wants to see a situation like the one that you outlined, where there was the absolutely catastrophic treatment of a woman giving birth.
Completely, and that treatment still continues. Unfortunately,
no, it doesn't.
When it comes to prison, what happens on policy paper and what happens in practice are two completely different things. The Royal College of Midwives have said that prison is no place for a pregnant woman. The Association of Child Psychologists have said that it is no place for a developing infant. The Ombudsman has ruled the reason pregnancies in prison are high risk is by virtue of the fact that a woman is held behind locked doors for sustained periods of time. So by design, there is psychological and medical consensus.
Can I just ask a question?
That's incorrect.
Unsafe.
That's incorrect.
That is not incorrect.
Her submissions are incorrect. I'm not sure where you're getting that.
That is not incorrect.
That
is from the prison ombudsman.
They are checked regularly.
The Royal College of Midwives.
If they need to instruct an expert externally, they will. If they need to be transferred to its hospital externally, they will be transferred. So I'm not quite sure where you're
Janey,
retrieving your information for, but it's inaccurate.
From women who I speak to on a weekly basis, there are recent cases of women who are being cuffed during childbirth for 36 hours at a time.
Can I ask, Janey, because I'm sure a lot of viewers are asking this, if you're pregnant, the obvious solution is not to commit the crime.
That's it.
I think it's very easy. That's very easy to say that in abstract. I think, as you will appreciate,
are you suggesting women are forced to commit crime?
That's a huge issue. There are a number of, I think domestic abuse is a prevalent factor in a lot of women's lives. There are social forces like poverty. I have mentioned that there are a significant amount of women in prison for shoplifting. Women in prison often have substance use issues. These are social needs that should have been met much further down the line before they arrived in the criminal system in the first place. But what I really want to reinforce is that there is psychological and medical consensus. Prison is simply not a safe place to be pregnant, and that is why this new guidance has come into place.
All right, that's where we came in. Powerful arguments on both sides.
Thank you both.
Very much indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A Ministry of Justice spokesperson said the prison system this country inherited is not working for most women. Many women in prison are victims and over half are mothers. And that's why the Lord Chancellor welcomed the Independent Sentencing Review's recommendations and has already established a new Women's Justice Board to reduce the number of women.
Well, over to you. We asked you, should pregnant women and new mums, by and large, be spared jail? Only 11% of you said yeah. 89% said no. So
well,
there's a long way to go with that.
They're not midwives.
Yeah, thank you both very much indeed.